So I've done reviews of the Evil Dead movies on my channel, but one movie I also wanted to review is Drag Me to Hell. Um, Comes up backwards on here, but it's Drag Me to Hell, as you can see here. Um, I love this movie. I know it has kind of some mixed opinions from, either horror fans or fans of Evil Dead, or even just, movie fans in general. Um, but I think it's great. I think it's pretty much, the next best thing to Evil Dead 4 that we're ever going to see now that there's a remake. Um, and, I wanted to offer some thoughts on it that I hadn't talked about it. And it's impossible to not talk about this movie without talking about the director, Sam Raimi. And specifically, it's impossible to not talk about Sam Raimi without talking about the Spider-Man movies. Um, in my Army of Darkness review, I pretty much said that Army of Darkness was his kind of branching out into big Hollywood Sam, like the big Hollywood movies, and he really was an interesting choice of director for Spider-Man. Like, it's pretty much probably either him or like some music video director or something. So I thought they took kind of a risk on Sam Raimi, but he turned out really well as a director. And personally, I still kind of like his first Spider-Man movie better than the Amazing Spider-Man, the new one that came out. But that's just my opinion. And I think, honestly, Spider-Man 2, you know, taking into account like big Hollywood Sam Raimi, I think it's his masterpiece. Really, I mean, it's a fantastic movie. Really one of the best superhero movies ever, in my opinion. And I think the praise that it gets is well deserved. So anyway, Spider-Man 3, however, not so good. I don't want to over exaggerate, but the movie's pretty much a disaster. And I don't know. I think Sam Raimi just kind of lost the battle against the suits for creativity with that one, as happens more often than not, sadly, in the entertainment industry. But yeah, I don't know, I guess he just kind of maybe fell under the pressure of such big productions, especially doing 3 in a row. And there's like this interview, if you ever read it, with Danny Elfman, the composer who did Spider-Man 1 and 2. He didn't do 3, but like there's some quote somewhere where he's like, by the end of Spider-Man 2, I didn't know who this guy was. It wasn't Sam Raimi looking back at me. Something had happened to him. So I thought that was interesting. I think, something happened to Sam Raimi, but, those two made up. They're going to do the Wizard of Oz movie. But, the thing is, with Drag Me to Hell, I think it's kind of like his redeeming movie. It was him kind of, sort of like going back to the basics, sort of. And in a weird way, I'd actually compare Drag Me to Hell and Sam Raimi to like something like Martin Scorsese and After Hours, because if you look at Scorsese in like that period in the 80s where he had a huge undertaking with Raging Bull, and he was trying to get Last Temptation of Christ out of the way, trying to like do that undertaking, having huge troubles from studios and everything, trying to get it off the ground as a passion project. Not Sam Raimi, but Scorsese, you just like got into drugs, depression, a horrible dark period. But then After Hours came along, and it was like a quick, cheap movie. He, just kind of basically was flexing his filmmaking muscles and proving that he still could make a movie, just out of the love of making movies. And I think that's kind of what Drag Me to Hell is for Sam Raimi. That's kind of him doing what he does best. He's not doing a huge budget kind of movie or anything. It is a smaller movie. It's a cheaper movie, and it's just him flexing his filmmaking muscles, basically. And he proves that he still has it with this movie, at least in my opinion. I think it's a lot of fun. Basically, I'm sure you know the plot, but it's basically about the girl, Christine, who gets a gypsy curse on her, and all these horrible things happen to her, and all these gross and crazy effects that are along the way. And I know that, some people say the effects are pretty cheesy and everything like that. But, if Evil Dead was made today, and I don't mean the remake, I mean like if, somebody just came up with something original and made it today, it would have kind of cheesier effects, and they would be CGI effects. It probably wouldn't be PG-13 like Drag Me to Hell, but that's kind of how it would be like. And you know, I can forgive the cheesy effects because the movie's fun in that sense. You know, it's a cheesy kind of how many horrible things can happen to our protagonist kind of movie, and I kind of have to contradict myself a little bit because in my review of the first Evil Dead, one thing I mentioned was, you know, if you torture a woman for 90 minutes, it's not, you know, it's considered a horrible, sexist, you know, treating women as victims kind of thing. If you torture a man for 90 minutes, like Ash in the Evil Dead movies, 3 in total, then all of a sudden it's a comedy. But you know, I feel like I have to eat my words with this movie because it really is a good comedy. It's a black comedy for sure, and I think Alison Lohman, she does a fantastic job in the movie. I know it was originally supposed to be, I think it was Ellen Page was supposed to be in it. That would have been pretty cool too. But honestly, whenever I watched it, I'm like, oh, if only Ellen Page would have done it. No, I'm happy Alison Lohman is in it. She's really fantastic in the movie. Really, it is kind of, sort of in the same way Bruce Campbell does the Evil Deads. It is a comedic performance, you know, and she has a lot of strength. She's not as stupid as Ash, for sure. You know, she has a lot more, you know, cunning to her, trying to stop this curse and, you know, battling against evil CGI napkins, and things like that. So, I thought that was good. One thing I think is kind of interesting about the movie, and you can read up on it, is that there are some theories about it that you can kind of look at it as the story of a girl with an eating disorder, which is interesting because it's, you know, you kind of pick up little hints about it. Like, for one thing, there's one scene where her, like, food goes all crazy and she sees, like, an eyeball in the piece of pie and, you know, things like that. And in one scene that, you know, I honestly didn't really pay much attention to at first, but it's mentioned in passing that she used to be a fat girl, she says. So, you know, maybe she lost weight through anorexia or whatever. So in a certain light, you could pretty much take the whole movie as, you know, her hallucinations and her just panic and anxiety as, you know, someone who's suffering from an eating disorder. And that's an interesting way to look at it. I don't know if that was the intent, but it's an interesting way to look at it. But basically the movie in total is just kind of a fun horror movie, made for fairly cheap comparatively, made pretty quickly. Sam Raimi just doing what he does best, along with his writing partner, his brother, Ivan Raimi. So I think it's, you know, worth revisiting if you haven't watched it in a while, because honestly, if I'll, you know, watch the Evil Dead movies and I still kind of, you know, I'm in the mood to watch more Sam Raimi carnage, I'll watch this, kind of like as, you know, like a bonus movie or anything. But you know, I think it's a lot of fun. The effects are really cool. Like, you know, there's CGI stuff, but there's other stuff too, like, you know, practical KGB effects, you know, like in that one scene where the coffin knocks over and then she wakes up too, and like the gypsy lady's in her bed, she vomits all over her. I thought that was pretty cool. And the whole, I love the scene near the end where she's like trying to bury her in the grave and it's raining and she's stuck in the mud. I thought that was cool. It's just a fun movie, and you know, it does work, you know, even if you don't want to look at it from that point of view of the eating disorder. It does work as a black comedy where pretty much, you know, if there's a moral to the movie, it's, you know, sometimes shit happens, there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes you're just cursed, sometimes you're just fucked. Which maybe, you know, maybe it's like kind of a personal statement from Sam Raimi about the Spider-Man movies. So that's kind of how I look at it. Sam Raimi just doing a movie as quickly as possible, flexing his muscles as much as possible. It's a fun ride. I think it is in good company with the Evil Dead movies. And honestly, I think, you know, if you've seen it before and you didn't like it, I think you should. I would recommend checking it out again, because when I first saw it, I didn't like it that much. But I watched it again a few times, and honestly, I think it's one of the best horror movies to come out in the last few years or so. Definitely, you know, something that I really like from Sam Raimi, because I think he's, you know, one of the more interesting directors still working today, and one of the more talented ones. And, you know, I have no idea what's going on with that Wizard of Oz movie. It might be good, might be horrible, but I'm hoping it's good. And you know, if anybody were to do it, I think it should be Sam Raimi instead of like Tim Burton or something like that. So, Drag Me to Hell, great movie, lots of fun. PG-13 or not, I don't care. A good horror movie is a good horror movie, and I think this movie is proof that there can be good PG-13 horrors out there, and it's proof that Sam Raimi, when he wants to, he can make a great damn movie. So, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.